How do we actually apply a transition? These all came in conveniently added to our timeline already, so we haven't actually created any of our own. Well, first of all, I'd like to identify a couple of clips that have some contrast between them. So if I click and drag through my timeline here, we can see that some clips here are very similar. We've got a lot of green grass and background trees here and here. So any work we do with transitions might not be quite as visible. So let's make sure that we find a couple clips with a lot of contrast. And I think these first two here, the tiger moth to the convict in the car, this is a pretty good point for us to add a transition. So with my time marker near a cut point, I'm just going to tap the letter V to jump to and select that cut point. It doesn't have to be selected. I just wanted to make sure we were right on top of a cut point. And now our most intuitive way to add a transition might be to go up to our effects window here and find our video transitions sub-menu. And let's take a look at some of the options that are available to us. Well, we've got a lot of subcategories here. Some 3D simulation transitions, there's dissolves and irises, there's maps. I'll talk about what most of these mean in just a moment, but an important thing to point out, and let's take a look at maybe this category here, stretch. An important thing to point out is that depending on the power and capability of your machine, you may see different options inside these windows than what I'm seeing here. For example, I'm seeing cross stretch, squeeze, squeeze and stretch, and stretch. You're going to see all four of these options, but if you look closely on my screen, you'll see that cross stretch and squeeze and stretch are bold, whereas squeeze and stretch are not bold. They are, in fact, in plain type. Well, what the bold is telling us is that with our current RT settings, if we were to apply this effect, this machine has a pretty good chance of being able to render this effect in real time. It passes the minimum specs, and our settings are such that if a transition qualifies for RT, it'll show up as bold. So if we went up to our dissolves, for example, and chose a fade in, fade out dissolve and applied that to our timeline, let's go down and take a look at it. First of all, I want to scroll down a little bit to reveal our big old video 1 track. And I want to make sure that nothing in our timeline is selected, so I'm going to hit Command-Shift-A to deselect all. And now let's zoom in with Command-plus on our transition here, and we'll see Fade In, Fade Out Dissolve clearly labeled, and we'll see a green line above it telling us that Final Cut is able to preview this transition for us. So let's preview it. I'm going to hit the / key to play around our current playhead.
The old Rhinebeck Aerodrome is a living museum of antique aviation. The aerodrome features airplanes, automobiles.
There we go. You saw the transition there. I'm just going to jump back and show it one more time. Let me just tap the space bar.
Aerodrome features airplanes, automobiles.
And you'll see that without a hitch, we're able to dip to black and fade back up on our next scene. That's what the fade in, fade out dissolve does.